You're listening to The Voluntary Life, where you can hear ideas for finding freedom in an unfree world. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to connect with the show and hear all past episodes. Here's your host, Jake.
Hi, it's Jake here. Welcome to The Voluntary Life. This week's episode is about entrepreneurship, and I'm going to talk about how I got Estonian E-Residency and why that might be interesting for you too. Before we get to that, I just want to say a big thank you to my new patron on Patreon. Thank you so much, TSK, for your generous pledge. I've just put out the 8th bonus episode for my patrons about customizing Evernote for productivity, giving an explanation of my own personal Evernote hacks for productivity. So if you're interested in becoming a supporter of the show, you can find out more about how to become a patron of The Voluntary Life on my website, thevoluntarylife.com, or directly on my Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/thevoluntarylife. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So I thought I would tell you a bit more about my own experience of becoming an e-resident of Estonia. I've had a few people ask me about this since I did some interview podcasts a while ago with other people who've become e-residents of Estonia. And I thought I'd just explain why I've done this, why I think the e-residency scheme in Estonia is really interesting, and give you a bit of an outline of the process in case this is something that you're curious about so that you can consider it for yourself. So what on earth is the Estonian E-Residency program? Well, as a bit of background to this, I'll explain a bit about why Estonia has set this program up and what it's all about. So Estonia is a small European country. It's one of the Baltic states. It was formerly part of the Soviet Union, got its independence in the 1990s, and it's now part of the European Union. But as a very small country, it doesn't have a huge amount of natural resources or other resources, but it does have a very technical and well-educated workforce. And the government of Estonia has developed this program to try and encourage business in Estonia called e-residency. Since there aren't a lot of natural resources, but there are a lot of technical and educated people in Estonia, the government has focused on trying to be a kind of digital e-commerce hub within Europe and to encourage lots of high-tech, small-scale entrepreneurs, including location-independent entrepreneurs. And what they're trying to do is encourage people to start businesses in Estonia. So they've set up this scheme called e-residency. And what this scheme gives you is essentially a government ID for the purposes of online contracts in Estonia. So it gives you permission to engage in certain contracts in Estonia and engage in certain activities, like, for example, starting and running a business based in Estonia. So it's not a real residency in the sense of, allowing you to go and live in Estonia or anything like that. It's a so-called e-residency in that it allows you to set up a business that is in particular run online and based in Estonia. So you can access services online from the government and submit forms online, sign contracts online, and submit taxes and all of that kind of thing. So the government of Estonia have done this because they want to attract digital nomad businesses, and they're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to do everything that you can do online. And they also have some very interesting and favorable tax rules regarding businesses. In particular, you don't pay company tax until you actually disperse money to shareholders. So in other words, if you reinvest your profits each year in your company and continue to grow your company, as most startups tend to do for many years in the early stage, then you won't be paying corporation tax on those reinvested profits. So that's a little bit of a background about what the Estonian government has done in setting up this e-residency scheme. Now, the thing is that it's potentially a very interesting scheme for anyone who wants to run an online business, and especially for people who are nomadic. If you are doing a lot of nomad entrepreneurship where you're living in different places and traveling a lot, and you want to run your business online, Estonia is one of the countries that has tried to make that as easy as possible. So you've got this interesting combination between quite favorable tax laws for startups and also a system that's set up to make it as easy as possible for you to be a digital nomad and run your business from anywhere in the world online. But Estonian E-Residency itself is what you need before you could even consider starting a business. So what I'm talking about in this episode is just getting the identity card, the digital card that gives you e-residency, that would then give you the permission to go and set up a business if you wanted to. And I actually have done that. I've set up a business in Estonia. But what I'm talking about today is just getting the card itself. So why would you want to do that? Well, I think this is relevant for anyone who might want to establish a business inside the EU, and in particular inside the Eurozone. And especially if you plan to move around and you need to have a business located somewhere that you could manage online and do a lot of traveling. So given my own lifestyle and the fact that my wife and I have been traveling for many years and we intend to do more travel and live in different places in the world, this is a very practical way of being able to manage a business online. But even if you are not yet in a position where you definitely are setting up a business, I think it's worth getting Estonian E-Residency just for the fun of it and to have the opportunity in future to set up a business in Estonia if you want to, because you can do this now. And I don't know how long you will be able to get Estonian E-Residency this easily. It might be more difficult in the future, but for now, it's very cheap and easy. It only costs €100. And so if you are interested in being a digital nomad and having an online business, I think it's worth considering just getting the e-residency now to give yourself the flexibility to potentially start a business in Estonia in the future. So what do you have to do to become an e-resident? Well, you basically just go to a website run by the Estonian government where you fill out an application, you pay a fee, which is €100 at the moment, you wait a couple of months, and then you go and pick up your ID card from the Estonian embassy in your country of origin or anywhere around the world that you want to pick it up. You just have to choose an embassy and designate where you're going to pick this up from. And then you wait a couple of months, in my case, I think it was a couple of months, and just go and pick it up when it's ready. So in my case, I applied in England. I'm a UK citizen. I did this back in 2015. And what I did is you have to send in a copy of your passport, and you have to write a short motivation statement explaining what your interest is in e-residency and why you are applying. And I just explained I intended to start a business and wrote a little bit about that. And then I just submitted my application. I think I paid a little bit less than €100 back in 2015, but the current fee is €100. You just pay that with a Visa card or something. And then I waited a couple of months until they had completed my background check and all of that. And I then went to pick up my card in the Estonian embassy in London. And they were very nice and polite. They took fingerprints, and then they just gave me my e-residency card. And so what that is basically a credit card sized card with a chip in it. And you also get a card reader, which you plug into your computer with a little USB connector. So you just plug in the card into the card reader and into your computer with the USB connector. And that allows you to get online and use that card as your digital identity within the Estonian e-residency system to do all sorts of things like sign documents digitally and submit taxes digitally and all of that kind of stuff. So once I had my Estonian e-residency, I was able to set up a company in Estonia. And the interesting thing about that is that it is incredibly fast and incredibly easy to set up a company. I thought about it for a long time and thought about different options and looked into whether or not I actually wanted to set up a company in Estonia. But when I decided to do it, it took me, I think, a couple of weeks to have everything set up, have the company registered, everything set up. And I did that using a local service provider. You can do it yourself. You can just go online using your e-residency card and find the right government departments and register a company and all of that. But I used a local company that specializes in doing this, and the one that I use is called Leapin. You can find them at leapin.eu. And what they do for me is they take care of all my compliance and accounting and everything else that I need to do in Estonia. So I pay a flat fee, and they have a different number of different fees that range, I think, between about €60 a month to €100 a month, depending on how much filing and paperwork your business actually needs. But what they have helped me do is to set up a business bank account for my business, and they take care of all of my tax filing and accounting and so forth. And for €100 a month, I think that service is actually very reasonable. So once I had my Estonian E-Residency card, I actually traveled to Estonia in order to set up a business bank account, which Leapin helped me organize. They did everything to get that all set up. Since I set this up, you can actually now set up a business bank account online. You don't even have to go to Estonia anymore at all. But when I originally set up my business, I did one trip to Estonia to set up the bank account for my business. And as I said, Leapin organized all of that for me. It was really easy. I was only in Estonia for a couple of days. So now I have a digital nomad business based in Estonia, and Leapin handle all the tax compliance, invoicing, etc. And each month I submit PDFs of invoices and receipts that I've had to Leapin, and they do all of the bookkeeping for me. And it works really well. If you're interested in Leapin, I do actually also have a referral code that will give you a significant discount. I think they will give you €100 off your account fees if you go with them. There's a small initial fee when you set up the business, and then there's €100 each month is your ongoing fee. But they'll give you €100 off that initial fee if you use the referral code Jake. So if you're interested in setting up a business, I do recommend Leapin. I've found them to be very reliable so far. But even if you're not yet in a position where you're interested in setting up a business, I think Estonian E-Residency is something to consider, just to give yourself that option in the future. You only have to pay the Estonian government €100 to do this, and then your card can just sit there, and you don't have to do anything with it if you don't want to. But at least having the E-Residency will give you that potential option in the future. Someone was asking me how long the Estonian embassy will keep your card once you've applied before you can go and pick it up. So if you submit an application and order a e-residency card, how long have you got in order to pick it up? And the answer is that they'll keep it for 6 months. So if you are traveling, you have to kind of think about when you're going to be in different countries and when you would be able to pick this up. But you've got 6 months to organize it. So you choose an Estonian embassy that is convenient for your travel plans as your pickup location, and then when you're ready, you just go and pick it up. There's a lot of other things that I could talk about with Estonian E-Residency if you're interested. Obviously, there are pros and cons to any business location, and there are pros and cons to setting up a company anywhere. And so it's a more complicated discussion to get into whether or not you really should set up a company in Estonia. But getting E-Residency is kind of a no-brainer, I think, because why not just have that option? If you are a digital nomad and you're considering different ways of having online businesses, get yourself E-Residency so that you have the option to do Estonia if you want to in the future. And then when it comes time to set up your business, you can look into detail about all the different pros and cons for taxes and other things, and obviously get your own advice and do your own research to decide what is the best location for you for your business. But in the meantime, I highly recommend getting E-Residency. Why not? Just give yourself that option in case you want it in the future. So I hope that's helpful, especially to all you nomadic entrepreneurs out there, digital nomads. That's all for this week. I'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to The Voluntary Life. If you like this podcast, please show your support by becoming a patron of The Voluntary Life on Patreon. Your support will help to grow and improve the show, and you'll get access to a treasure trove of rewards, including bonus episodes. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to learn more.